Well, back now to our main report tonight. The phone hacking verdict's in today. Former number 10 Director of Communications Andy Coulson has been found guilty of conspiring to hack phones whilst he was editor of the News of the World. His ex-colleague Rebecca Brooks has been cleared of all charges. Our Home Affairs Correspondent Andy Davies reports now on the criminal conspiracy that operated within what once was Britain's most popular Sunday newspaper.
It was the black and white broadsheet turned red-top tabloid which put the screws into news. It had undercover stings and a fake sheikh who was the real deal. Many condemned its style, but few dared ignore its influence. But then came its sensational demise, engulfed in a scandal all of its own, forged in the hacked voicemails of an abducted teenager and fueled by the outrage which followed. It left the police humiliated, politicians tainted, and the News of the World, 168 years in the making, gone in a day. And now it is an Old Bailey jury who've just written the latest dramatic chapter in the unfinished story of the phone hacking scandal. Central to this case had been the allegation that the phone hacking conspiracy went right to the top of the News of the World, and the prosecution had a witness who would claim exactly that. His name, Dan Evans, an ex-News of the World reporter who'd been assured of a reduced sentence for his prolific hacking if he gave evidence for the prosecution. He whistled his way into court and recounted the moment he played a hacked voicemail to an approving Andy Coulson. And then there was Clive Goodman, for so long the so-called rogue reporter, the lone wolf jailed for hacking 7 years ago and willing now to name others in the pack. And Goodman, who'd been assured that he wouldn't be charged again with hacking, didn't hold back. In fact, he revealed that back in 2005 and 6, he hacked Kate Middleton's phone 151 times. He also said that around that time, with Andy Coulson as editor, there wasn't one major story which hadn't had some form of input from hacking. And no one hacked more for the paper than this man, Glenn Mulcaire. The private investigator paid £100,000 a year by News International and here filmed secretly by Dispatches 3 years ago.
I would be given instructions. My approach, again, I was a fact finder, I was an investigator, I wasn't a journalist.
The scale of the investigator's hacking was finally laid bare in this trial. In the mass of handwritten notes, his myriad targets named. Here politicians Charles Clarke, Tessa Jowell, floating in a sea of private numbers, dates of birth, mobile PIN codes, bank accounts. 5,600 taskings. The hacking demand from the News of the World so intense he once had to email them, "Overload, no more please." He was so adept at it he gave others tutorials, this time in targeting the boss of the Professional Footballers Association, Gordon Taylor.
Hello, it's Glenn.
Glenn, how are you?
Hello, mate. Just a very quick one. Voicemail reset on Gordon Taylor. Do not delete anything. You put his number in.
Yeah.
It asks you for the PIN, then put his number back in.
Yeah.
And there's 3 messages on there from Tottenham, all right?
Fantastic.
Well, there was an interesting statistic that came out in the course of the trial, which was about the number of times on which Glenn Mulcaire had been tasked by the News of the World. And cutting a long story short, what it showed was that he was being tasked at least once a day, every day, even if you think he was working 7 days a week, throughout the 5-year period for which he was contracted to work for that newspaper. That's the scale of it. There it is in black and white. In Mulcaire's notes, you can see them using him every single day of the year.
And how did Mulcaire get into someone's voicemail if he didn't know their PIN? We'll have a listen to him now, pretending to work for O2 and conning an employee into resetting a PIN code to its default setting, leaving it wide open for him to get to work. This, as played to the jury, is the dark art of blagging.
Welcome to O2 Network Services. Helen speaking. Can I take your name, please?
Yeah, good afternoon, Helen. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
John Jenkins, Credit Control. Doing all right,
Hi
Pop
there.
Dustin. Companion going to school with, typical Friday. I'll give you the network password, Albatross.
It is, thank you.
Just voicemail resets on the following number.
Yep.
It's 077.
077.
989.
989.
Hang on, hey, you been very busy or?
Yeah, extremely busy. We've got a congestion with text messages at the moment.
You're joking,
so we're
I heard about
really
that.
busy at the moment.
Oh no, you're not going to get paid double for it though.
Unfortunately not. Just hold the line for me one
Excellent,
moment.
cheers.
Thanks.
You are at the O2 voicemail main menu.
Great, thanks for holding again. That's
Excellent.
been reset and it's working for
That's
you.
live, excellent. Helen, I'm going to
Okay.
be rude and give you one more if you don't mind.
And he did, and then another one after that.
We used to phone up Vodafone.
And that's how he got into Mark Oaten's voicemails. The former Liberal Democrat MP whose relationship with a male prostitute was exposed in the News of the World 8 years ago. He remembers clearly the moment the police told him he'd been hacked.
They played me all of these messages that I'd never got, and all of a sudden my mood changed. I actually started crying, which I'm told is quite common. A lot of the other victims cried when they heard the tapes, and that thing was just out of pure shock at what had happened. To hear myself being impersonated, to hear loved ones and people I knew leaving messages for me that I never got, it was incredibly shocking.
Mulcair was at the heart of the hacking. Above him, reporters Evans and Goodman, who themselves hacked. Then those tasking it, editors on the news desk, who prior to this trial pleaded guilty to a hacking conspiracy. James Weatherup, Greg Miskew, and Neville Thirlbeck, who'd also been the paper's chief reporter. We asked him back in 2011, did you ever commission the hacking of voicemails?
You know, I can't believe you asked me that question, to be honest. I mean, of course, you know, I think I've made my position extremely clear on my innocence.
And now a jury has concluded that their old boss, Andy Coulson, was in on it too. A rotten state of affairs, as the prosecution put it, which went to the very top. And here is Andy Coulson speaking to Parliament 5 years ago.
I never condone the use of phone hacking, and nor do I have any recollection of incidences where phone hacking took place.
In a dramatic moment in this trial, Andy Coulson admitted being played hacked voicemail messages left by the former Home Secretary, David Blunkett. And he was accused of being involved in the most notorious phone hack of them all, that of Millie Dowler's voicemails when she went missing 12 years ago. The prosecution had also claimed the then editor, Rebecca Brooks, on holiday at the time, was involved too, and that her relationship with her former lover and deputy, Andy Coulson, was such they must have discussed the hacking. But that was rejected by the jury, and they cleared her today. But this case wasn't just about hacking, of course, because the prosecution tried to link Andy Coulson and Rebecca Brooks to another crime, paying public officials. It's been alleged in this trial that Andy Coulson authorised a payment to a police officer for a confidential royal phone directory, the so-called Green Book. The prosecution showed the jury an email from the royal editor, Clive Goodman, to Mr Coulson saying the standard price is £1,000, and Andy Coulson responding, this is fine. But Mr Coulson told the court he didn't believe it was ultimately going to a policeman. Clive Goodman said he'd just been exaggerating the importance of his contact. The jury are tonight still deliberating on this and another related charge. It was a similar accusation against Rebecca Brooks while she was editing The Sun. Again, the prosecution produced emails which showed her replying yes and fine to a journalist requesting payments for his #1 military contact. That contact was in fact a Ministry of Defence press officer who picked up her cash payments at branches of Thomas Cook in return for providing dozens of tip-offs for stories. She was paid more than £100,000 in total. But Rebecca Brooks claims she didn't realise this contact was actually a public official, and today she was cleared of the charge.
That's why we're going fast.
Rupert Murdoch will be hugely relieved at Rebecca Brooks's acquittal, but he knows the Crown Prosecution Service may now consider charges at a corporate level. There are more trials in the pipeline involving numerous Sun journalists. And on both sides of the Atlantic, his political enemies will be re-energised.
Was buying into the News of the World your own idea, or was it suggested from someone else?
It's entirely my own idea.
Rupert Murdoch's bitterly fought acquisition 45 years ago of the king of the Sunday tabloids gave him a foothold on Fleet Street, then so critical to his quest for global expansion. But now it's gone, And as they pull down the old News of the World building, in the broken pieces of this scandal, what more may yet emerge? Sentencing will come soon, and with it the voices of those who've pleaded guilty in this case and stayed silent for so long. As for Andy Coulson, he now faces the possibility of a prison sentence, even if a victim hacked by the newspaper he edited would prefer it ended rather differently.
I don't want to see anybody go to a jail as a result of this. There's been enough hurt for the victims. They've, as individuals, got family and children. I went through it. They've gone through it in the trial. No more suffering on this. But I would like my half an hour with them just to explain the consequences of what individuals as powerful as that can do to the lives of people who they expose in the way they do.
What Andy Coulson would give right now for an outcome as charitable as that.
That's him, and he was guilty.